Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm sure everyone's zoomed out these days, so we appreciate you taking a few minutes to get a little bit more screen time with us. There's only going to be one sales pitch today, and this is it, and it's going to be short. Chazin Company has been around for about 15 years. We only do outsourced accounting, and we're nonprofit accounting specialists. That's all we do. We don't do audit or tax. We just do the outsourced accounting. Sales pitch over. So our webinar today is about remote accounting, and we just wanted to spend a few minutes with you in case you're thinking about moving your own accounting shop to more of a remote shop. Most of our clients that we deal with are on a remote basis. We serve them on a remote basis. We have to admit there's a few that we have that have been slow to adopt the remote process, at least until COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, they seemed to see the light a little bit and came to us and said, can we get the remote set up? And in most cases, we've been able to do that very successfully, actually in all cases. So if you're thinking about that, we want to give you a few things to think about as you consider that option. Definition of remote accounting. I gotta admit, this didn't come from Merriam-Webster. It didn't even come from Wikipedia. I made it up. Accounting that can be done almost anywhere. So the idea is that no matter where you are, later on, but as long as you have the internet, you should be able to keep your accounting function moving forward. So why consider a remote accounting setup? First of all, if you have an organizational disaster plan, this is something that should really be a part of that plan. And I know a lot of organizations don't have disaster plans, and I understand why. They can be very long and comprehensive and cumbersome documents. However, all organizations should consider a few things fundamentally. First of all, you should understand and prioritize what your main functions are. Determine how quickly they need to be up and running if you do run into a disaster situation, and have defined backup strategies. So this involves identifying your key operations. Accounting might very well be one of them, along with a few other things. Thinking about also your deliverables to your stakeholders. What are your customers, so to speak, for nonprofit stakeholders? What are they expecting from you, and what do you need to serve them? What would prevent you from delivering your services? What is your funding tied to? So these are all important considerations to have when thinking about how your organization would operate if a disaster hit. Now, the COVID pandemic is certainly one form of disaster that we're all dealing with right now, but there are others as well. For instance, if you have a physical office and there was a fire or there was a flood, how would that impact your ability to operate as an organization? And what backup plans do you have to continue to operate? Remote also provides redundancy in easier transitions. You don't have much equipment to replace or move. A lot of times it's just having additional logins to cloud-based systems. So it's easier to move processes around to different locations and different people. Greater compliance and security. Some cloud-based solutions have built-in compliance mechanisms that require proper processes are followed. So right there, if you are using a cloud-based system that, for instance, has a compliant process and you're following it to complete those transactions, you're being compliant just by using that system. That's one of the benefits. Many other cloud-based solutions have much greater security than is feasible for any of us on our local access solutions, on our laptops, on our in-house servers. So the security solution is there as well. Improved accessibility. Many cloud-based products include access to more users than are available through some desktop products. Sometimes you purchase a desktop product and it allows one user. Cloud-based products usually have more. So you have greater access by your team members that need to use that product. The other thing too is you just need internet access. You're not tied to an office to go in and take care of a transaction or a certain function like accounting or a remote desktop server. That can lead to lower software and IT costs. You're not maintaining servers or remote desktop applications, and upgrades to cloud-based systems are usually included in the subscription fee. You don't have to purchase the product or repurchase the product every few years to get an upgraded version and then load it back onto whatever device or server that you're using. Some key questions to consider. How are you receiving your payments right now? Are you receiving cash, checks, wires, e-payments? Obviously, for a remote situation, the more electronic payments you're receiving, the better. If you're still getting cash and checks, then that's something you need to consider when you're trying to go remote. How will those processes be handled? Cash, obviously, there's not much you can do with cash. You can't even scan cash like you can with checks, and we do recommend desktop scanners for checks that are received. That allows you to get the funds into your account sooner, and it also allows you to create images of your transactions automatically on your online banking system. Cash is a different story and still would need to be dealt with even in a remote situation. The other thing you might consider, if you are an organization that receives quite a bit of revenue through checks, like for memberships, for instance, you might want to consider adapting your system to more of an electronic payment system. So that might mean sending out notices by email or digitally with digital links for payments that go through a payment processing system and come to your bank via EFT. This might reduce the number of checks you have to deal with over time. So that's something to think about as well. All right, payables. How are your bills currently being paid? Are you still doing paper check runs? Are you using EFT, ACH payments, wires, bank bill pay, credit card, debit cards? Paper checks are pretty cumbersome and not always secure. I can tell you how many times we've walked into an office and we've asked our client where their paper checks are, and they're maybe sitting on top of a desk or they're in an unlocked drawer where somebody could easily access them. I'm not saying that you should get rid of all paper checks. They are useful in cases of emergency, but moving to a more electronic payment system would be preferred. Some of these methods too are also not best practices or compliant. Debit cards are not as secure as credit cards, and actually we recommend to our clients that they not use debit cards, that they use credit cards for that type of transaction. You have to be careful with control issues around bill pay and wires. If one person has full access to make a payment through a bank bill pay system or a wire system, then there's really no control there. That person can go and make a payment to their own personal account. They can make a payment to an offshore account if they wanted to. So you have to be very careful with those systems that there are approval processes built in so that one person cannot alone make payments through those systems. Cloud-based solutions do bring compliance and efficiencies. I've touched on that a little bit before, but there's built-in processes and controls for posting approval and payments through these cloud-based payment systems. And you don't need to be in the same place to pay invoices. If you're running paper checks still, you probably have a situation where the signer needs to be in the office to sign those checks, and it's got to be done on the right day. And if they're not there, out of town, your payments don't get out on time. So there are cloud-based solutions that serve the remote process, but also help you become much more efficient and continuous with your accounts payable process. for payroll. If you're not doing your payroll review and submission electronically online, you really should be. I think gone should be the days when people were printing out payroll previews and signing them and faxing them back in or sending them back in by email, which is not a good idea because of the data that's included on those. So that should be done digitally now anyway. One thing to think about is if you are transferring responsibility for payroll to someone else that's maybe in a different location on a different machine, access to a new device could require additional security protocols and could take a little bit longer. With the two-step verifications, a lot of times codes are sent to certain mobile phones, and with someone that's new to that, they won't get the code if they're using your sign-in, so they need to set up their own sign-in, and that, again, with the payroll system can take a day or two, but that would be the best practices. So payroll right now should be pretty much done on a digital basis. Okay, for general accounting system access, just some things to think about. Is your accounting software on a specific computer or server? And if it is, what happens if that computer or server crashes? Do you have daily backups in place that you can access? How long would it take to restore the system on a computer or the server should something happen to it? Can the accounting system be accessed remotely? If so, how and by how many people? Can everyone that needs it access it? What is involved in making a change to that access? If it's a remote desktop application, do you need to get an IT professional involved to add another person to access or to change access? How many users ideally should have access to the accounting system? Can more than one person have access at the same time? Well, that'll be driven by the software you have. If you purchase software that only allows one user, even if it's done through a remote desktop access, that system will only give access to one user at a time. And if you have multiple people that have different roles using your accounting system, that may not be sufficient. Again, sometimes with a cloud-based system, you've got multiple user access and more people can be involved in using that system. Do the people who need access have different needs and with their access? They have different roles that need to be served by the system. Are some report-only viewers? Are some processing AP and others processing AR? That all needs to be considered when you're thinking about remote access and who and how access is granted, who to and how access is granted. Can the system support the different roles satisfactorily? Are permissions limiting access available? So, for instance, those report-only viewers, can you limit them through only viewing reports? And then giving the full accounting access to those who need it. Okay. A little bit on secure document storage and sharing sensitive files. We recommend moving as much from paper to electronic files as possible. It reduces the need for storage space and facilitates greater access and the ability to process work remotely. Store backup within the accounting system if possible. Some systems make this easy to do, where you can actually save documents to transactions within the system. It makes researching transactions much easier. It also makes audit field work more efficient. If you can give your auditor access to the accounting system and they can see that there's proper backup for the transactions that have been entered into the system. There's cloud-based systems. I talked a little bit about AP systems a little bit earlier. One that we happen to use a lot is Bill.com. There are others as well, but they provide document storage as well as the AP and the AR process. So, basically we tell our clients that all your AP backup should be stored in one place. It should be stored in Bill.com, so that if you need to find anything or see any backup, and they are, the documents are saved to the transactions as well, you could easily access them and find them in one place. Again, that makes, not only is that easier for your own day-to-day work, but it eliminates the need for samples to be pulled for the audit. It means you don't have to pull samples, give them to the auditor, and refile them. You just give them access to the system, such as Bill.com. They can go in, look at every transaction, see the process that was involved in completing that transaction, which is a compliant process, and also see the backup. So it does help audits become much more efficient. They really love it. Secure document storage with permissions limiting access. So wherever you are keeping your sensitive files, and hopefully they are in a secure place, ensure that your sensitive data has limited access, whether it's paper or digital. I mean, if you do have historical information that's stored on paper, make sure it's locked up and it's put in a place where it's not easily accessed by those who shouldn't be accessing it. But digital as well, make sure that you have a secure document storage area in the cloud or on a server, and that the permissions limiting access, so only those who need to see that information can see that information. Some secure methods for document sharing. There are secure file transfer services out there that you can use, and some aren't very expensive at all, where you can transfer sensitive files and any documents that have sensitive information on them to people who need it, whether you're sharing with an accountant or whether you're sharing internally, making sure that data is protected through the transfer system. There are portals that can also be used securely to share documentation. And again, anything that's payroll related, anything that has social security numbers, anything that's personal information, that should all be protected and secured. Email is really not good for that. Email is not secure for sharing that type of information, and you should certainly not be sending payroll documents and that type of information to people via email. Dropbox can be better, but there are some concerns with Dropbox as well. I think that's a decision that you need to make on your own as to whether or not Dropbox will work for you. But there is actually, on our resources slide, I added a blog about Dropbox and how you can make Dropbox more secure. So if you're using Dropbox or a service like it, you might want to kind of look over those tips and see if there's any concerns that you would have. Again, if you're sharing sensitive information that way. Ensure that your internet lines are secure, and that's something that we don't think of often, especially in these days and times. If we're working remotely, and maybe not so much in these days and times when we're traveling more freely. The Panera network is not a secure network, and nor is the airport network or the hotel network and all these different places that we try to do work. And if you're dealing with sensitive information or dealing with information that belongs to other people, think about, be careful to avoid public networks. If you're going to be out in public, consider hotspots and VPNs that are secure so that, again, your data cannot be intercepted. A lot of times we don't think that can happen, and it's not a big worry, but it does happen, and it can happen, and it's one of those worst case things to happen to you if it does, because then there's a lot of remediation that has to happen to correct it. So please, make sure you have something in place to make sure that you're treating sensitive data very carefully. Let me just pause for a second. Have any questions come in at this point?
No questions so far. Just a reminder to everybody, if you would like to enter a question at any point during the presentation, feel free to just pop it in that question section, and we'll be monitoring that to make sure we provide answers for you guys.
All right. A little bit about cloud-based versus remote desktop, and a little bit of this, some of this is repetitive to what I've said earlier, but cloud-based generally provides better access to more users. Remote desktop can be restricted by the software you're using. Remote desktop doesn't mean that more people can use it. It's just using the same software you have remotely, and it can be a little bit more expensive to maintain, and slow connections can make that a little more cloggy, a little bit slower response time when you're using it in that fashion. Again, also automatic updates rather than purchasing version upgrades with subscriptions to cloud-based solutions. When thinking about accounting systems, certainly find the right size system for your nonprofit. There are many, many different systems out there to choose. We're not here to push any particular systems. We happen to use QuickBooks Online more for our clients that are a little bit smaller, maybe not as complex, and we happen to use Intact as our cloud-based solution for our more complex clients who have many programs and services and grants and different things going on that they need to track in a little bit more of a robust system. Make sure that the system does have the functionality that you need. Does it allow you to set up a chart of accounts in the way that will best serve your organization? Does it provide the user access and the user limitations that your organization needs? And also consider integration with other applications. Are you going to use it with, for instance, a Bill.com or an Expensify or some other system for bill payments or expense tracking or time tracking? And check to see if the system can be integrated with the software system that you either have or that you're looking at. And then lastly, can you get the data from the system that you need? Reporting is just more and more critical these days in getting out the kind of data that you all need to run your organizations. So make sure that the reporting that's available to the system fits the needs that you have for leadership and management. Some associated applications, and again, this isn't meant to be all the applications that are out there. You need to do your own research and take a look at what might work for you. But in accounts payable, receivable, there's Bill.com and Mineral Tree is out there for expense reimbursements. There's Expensify, Tally, and Nexonia. Time tracking, Nexonia is a product that we happen to be familiar with. For budgeting, we happen to have a few clients on Martis. Again, but there's lots of budgeting softwares out there to look at. And for data manipulation, Tableau is a product that's getting a lot of attention lately. But not saying that you have to use any of these, but these are products, and there are many other products like them out there that you might want to utilize to help you set up your remote accounting shop. Again, to take those processes to the cloud. Whoever you're talking to about accounting software, please, definitely discuss with them about what integrates with their systems to make sure that you don't get down the road and find out that another product you want to use won't integrate with the accounting software that you've picked. Okay. So best practices in compliance. When you go to remote, that doesn't go away. You still have to follow. The best practices in compliance for accounting procedures. So separation of duties is still important. Just because you've gone remote doesn't mean you can have one person do everything. So you need to think about different roles for accounts payable. Who's posting an invoice? Who's approving an invoice? Who's paying an invoice? For receipts. We talked a little bit earlier about checks. If you're still getting checks that are coming through the door, those checks still need to be logged, and they should be deposited by a different individual, so that there's some check and balance to make sure that the checks that are coming in the door are getting deposited properly. And of course, cash is a whole other deal that needs to be there needs to be a system in place to make sure that cash is being processed properly as well. For payroll processing, again, the person that's submitting the payroll should get a sign-off from someone else, probably the executive director or the CEO, on the payroll to make sure that, again, nothing funny is being done there. And then sign off on bank reconciliations and journal entries should also be done by the executive director or the CEO. So a lot of the processes that happen on a day-to-day basis with a non-remote accounting shop still need to happen with a remote accounting shop. Just have to figure out a little bit differently how you transfer that material. Again, we talked about sensitive material like payroll and how that should and should not be transferred, and other maybe less sensitive materials can be shared by email. But these things still need to happen, and you just need to develop a little bit different processes for doing them than walking down the hall and having somebody sign a bank rec, for instance. Okay. So that about covers our little kind of foray into remote accounting. Are there any questions at this point?
Nothing so far.
Okay. So Adele and I are both available if you have any questions or considering a remote switch and are wondering how to maybe get something accomplished. So there's our email addresses if you want to reach out to either of us. And then this is the Dropbox article that I included. If you are using Dropbox and you want to make sure it's providing the security that you need.
All right, and it looks like we do have one question in there. Can you speak about VPN clients?
About VPN clients, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris, I can I think I can answer this question. If the question is related to how we service VPN clients, which it sounds like it may be, we do access our client. We do have a handful of clients that we do access through their VPNs. Their IT providers put VPN access on our computers, and then we're able to log into their systems that way. As Chris said, that approach is much more, it's just slower. It's a lot more bogged down. We have a lot more IT issues. One big one that we see is that the computer needs to be on, and if we log in and the computer is accidentally turned off, we can't do our work, and that sets us behind. So although we can and we do work in the VPN environment, the web-based applications are still preferred for efficiency. Did that answer the question?
It looks like we got a response that says yes, thank you. And we've got a couple more popping up in here. Somebody was asking if you're familiar with QuickBooks Online and what its typical pricing may be.
Chris, I'll let you take
that. We are okay. We are very familiar with QuickBooks Online. We have a lot of clients on it. Pricing depends. If you're a 501c3 organization, you can get very favorable pricing through TechSoup. And I think now their pro package, which is sort of their basic package, is $75 a year if you're a 501c3 through TechSoup. If you're not a 501c3 and cannot go through TechSoup, it's still fairly reasonably priced, but I'm not exactly positive of the price. I think it might be something like, let's say, $50 or $75 a month if you're not a 501c3. But if you are on a desktop version of QuickBooks now and you want to get over to QuickBooks Online, it's a very simple migration, actually. We actually do it. We've moved a number of clients this year from desktop to QuickBooks Online, and can be done with just a couple 3 hours of work or so. And this is assuming you're not changing the chart of accounts and everything. You're just moving the system from one platform to the other. But it's a very easy transition.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Chris just said, we obviously, as an accounting firm, we have a portal or an account with QuickBooks Online. And so we have pricing that we're able to offer to our clients that might be a little better than what it would be if you went direct with Intuit. But again, the subscription fees are really reasonable. One thing I will add too, that was just an afterthought, I'm sorry. Chris did mention the QuickBooks Pro Well, actually, on the online version, Chris, I think that that's okay, right? The larger version is for clients that would be on something like enterprise that required more storage. Is that correct?
Well, it has to do with the number of there's a higher level version of QuickBooks Online that is I think through TechSoup it's $105 a year, I think it is. But anyway, if a client has a very large number of accounts or classes, then it could kick them up into the next level of QuickBooks Online. That's what it's dependent upon.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure that if someone does go to TechSoup that they know what questions to ask about which version they need.
All right, we have another question about, can you provide any information about companies, resources, or processes that are able to help organizations assess what they currently have and what they need to become remote?
That's an interesting question.
Well, I mean, that's a service that we...
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that is something we can do. It kind of depends on the organization, but that is something that an organization like our firm can do, or other firms like us. A lot of audit and tax firms provide the same, can provide some of the same type of service. The pitch I would make for us is that we are a remote accounting firm, and this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. So, and we often, when we're talking to prospective clients and our own clients, are talking to them about efficiencies in different processes and different systems that they should be using to make their process remote efficiencies. So I said there was only going to be one sales pitch, so I've already lied, but that is something that we can do, and there's probably, but I should be fair and say there's probably other firms that can do it as well.
Yeah, I will say, though, I don't necessarily know that the audit and tax firms are the place to go for that advice, because they're not normally doing a lot of the day-to-day transactional work that we're doing and using the systems that we're using. Some of them do have outsourced departments, so in that type of a situation, they may be able to advise you. But just to go to an auditor and expect them to know, I wouldn't expect that to be overly successful.
All right, we have another question that says, I've heard a lot about Bill.com. The current situation has made Payables the most challenging for us. Would you be able to add any additional information about Bill.com, especially how it integrates with QuickBooks Online?
Yes. Again, and the majority of our QuickBooks Online clients are also on Bill.com. Bill.com is a very nice, slick tool for accounts payable. You're able to upload your invoices by email or by drag and drop on your computer right into an inbox on Bill.com. You can go there right into the system. It will sync over the vendors that you have on your accounting system automatically. So you can go and you can post an invoice, you can pick the vendor, put in the due date, the coding right into Bill.com. It allows for a compliant approval and payment process. So once someone posts an invoice in Bill.com, it gets then forwarded on to whoever the designated approver is for that invoice, and then once approved, to the designated payer. So you can have a separation of duties within the system, but these people don't have to be in the same place at all, and they can do this on their computer, they can do this on their phone. And then once the transactions go through the different stages, posted, approved, paid, they also sync with the accounting system, in this case, QuickBooks Online. So once you've posted an invoice, you're going to have a payable. You sync it with QuickBooks Online, and you have a payable in QuickBooks Online. And once it's paid, it's synced and it's marked as paid in the system. It's a relatively affordable system. It saves a lot of time, and again, as it's kind of alluded to earlier, there's no check day, and you don't have to have Wednesday as check day, and so has to be in the office to sign checks. you can process your APs as you want, every day, every 3 days, once a week, however you want to, but your ultimate payer doesn't have to be there at all and can do it by getting an email message saying that they've got something in their box to pay, and then they kind of just sign on, like I said, through their app on a phone or through the computer, and click and hit submit, and you're done. And then I also mentioned earlier about the audit process. You just kind of give the keys to Bill.com to your auditor at the end of the year. There's no samples to pull, and they can go and look at any samples they want to in Bill.com, and you know that the backup is already in there, and that everything's gone through the proper process from posting to payment. So we have a lot of clients on that, and it seems to work very, very well. And I should also add, let me just add one other thing to that. It too, it's a pretty simple, not a very time intensive process to set up Bill.com and then to integrate it with your existing accounting system. So for instance, if you're on QuickBooks Online and you wanted to add Bill.com, it's 2 or 3 hours of work to do that. Sorry, Bonnie.
All right, we have a question. That's all right. Are you familiar with Abila Community Brands MIP?
I am only sort of tangentially familiar with it. I don't know it very well. I know it exists and I know of it, but it's not something that we're familiar with or have an expertise in.
Well, which Abila project is it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Community Brands MIP?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I do know that one of our clients semi-recently was on Abila, and it was a very limited program, and we ended up converting them over to Intact, but I'm not sure if it's the same Abila product. I'd have to check into that.
All right, and then we have another question back to Bill.com. Do you know if that integrates with Sage 300 CRE?
We know it integrates with Sage Intact. I don't know if it off the top of my head if it integrates with Sage 300.
I'm inclined to say no, because Sage 300 is a pretty limited program, and we have checked other applications such as Microsoft Dynamics and Peachtree and some of those, and it does not integrate with those products. The only ones that we're aware of that for sure it works with is QuickBooks Online and Intact, and possibly Xero, but I'm not 100% sure about Xero.
No, I don't think it does not. It does not work with Xero.
Okay, I don't think there are many applications out there that they've integrated with as of yet.
Yeah, I mean the easiest thing to do is just if you go to the Bill.com website, I think it says they're right there, or very close to the homepage. It lists the accounting products that they do integrate with.
Okay, we got a follow-up to that. What about Blackbaud?
I don't think it's integrating with Blackbaud, but again, I think that Chris is right. The best way to be sure is to go to their website.
All right, that seems to be it for the questions that we have currently in there, but we'll hold it open for just a few more minutes. So if you're still working to type your question, go ahead and get it in now. We do have a follow-up to the question to view the website for the integrations. Do you know which web address they can access that information?
Well, let me see if I can check while we're. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I was going to see if I could maybe. I've got to, because I'm screen sharing. It's hard for me to do that. I thought I remember. Let me see. The logos of the products, either on the home page or near the home page. Well, let me pause. I'm going to pause showing my screen for a second. And I will see if I can go on quickly and find that. So hopefully you're not looking at me. Let's see where we can see how it works. Accounting software implication. Oh, you know, I misspoke on one. So let me see. It says QuickBooks, Xero, Oracle NetSuite, and Sage Intacct are I'll see it also. Let's see. Okay, not on the list. Bill.com works with many other leading. Okay, so it can work. It can work through templates, upload templates with some other products, and what they're listing here for those sort of template upload integrations are Microsoft Dynamics, other Sage projects. It looks like SAP, FreshBooks, Yardi, and Thomson Reuters. But those would not be the direct sync integrations. Those would be a template upload, which could still work effectively potentially, but not as kind of neat and slick as the automatic sync with, again, QuickBooks, Xero, Oracle, NetSuite, and Sage Intacct.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions put in here. Are you familiar with AppFlow software? And if so, where can you get training for it online?
Which software did you say? I didn't hear that.
AppFlow, AppLos.
I am not. Are you, Adele?
No, I am not.
All right, well, we can move on to our next question. Are you familiar with how Sage Intacct might integrate with Blackbaud's Razor's Edge and Concur?
So you Intacct and Razor's Edge. Now that's a different question. So Intacct does have a partners page on their website, and there's a marketplace partners page that lists all of their sort of integration partners for all kinds of different applications. So was it Blackbaud? Did you say Blackbaud Financial Edge?
Blackbaud's Razor's Edge and Concur.
Oh, Razor's Edge. That's the fundraising. I think that's CRM or the fundraising side. So I'm not sure it would. I mean, because that's a Blackbaud product and there's Blackbaud Financial Edge. I'm not sure that Intacct would integrate with that, but maybe there has been an application developed for that. And the other thing, I'm sorry, the other product was? Concur. Oh, Concur. I think Concur may be on the, is it there on there? Okay. Yeah. But that's a really good resource if you're interested in Intacct and want to look at peripherals. That partner marketplace page, again, has a lot of partners in a lot of different categories.
The one thing that I will caution, though, is that Intacct isn't always as easy, even though it does integrate, that it's not always as easy as they make it seem. And it may be that you need to upgrade to a higher level or platform of Intacct to be able to do the integration, or you may have to pay to have some type of integration written for you. So when you are looking at these options, I mean, feel free to reach out to us and we can answer any questions you have, or to whoever your Intacct provider is. They should be able to answer your questions.
Are you familiar with any resources for QuickBooks training?
Is that QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online?
Let's see, Robin, if you'd like to clarify. Okay, so she's specified online.
Okay. We do have resources for that. If you would like to email me, I can send you some links.
Okay, and we have another question that refers to the differences. How do you manage the differences between managing a team remotely as compared to being online?
Are you referring to the accounting team, it sounds like?
Yeah.
When you say remotely versus online, was that the question?
I mean, excuse me, remotely being in the office. That was I misread the question.
I mean, it's really no different. I mean, we do a lot of video conferencing with our clients and with our staff, and that's how we're able to communicate. Again, we have different methods of sharing data and materials and transactions safely and securely. It's really getting these systems in place to be able to handle the remote accounting. I think the people side of it's the easier side of it is, again, it's just getting the right systems in place. Do you agree with that, Chris, or do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think you know, and this time that we're going through now, you know, where we've been forced to use Zoom and Teams and other products like that. I mean, it's really for us, it's really shown us that we can effectively do our work, you know, remotely and share documents on screen and all that we don't need to be, you know, physically looking over each other's shoulder to do accounting work. And it's so, you know, I think with any team that you're managing remotely, whether it's your marketing team or whether it's your finance team or whatever, you know, if they're remote, they're not there, and you don't have eye contact with them all the time. They're not just down the hall. So you do have to, you know, you have to have in place procedures to communicate and for accountability and making sure that you know what you're getting what you expect to get done and all that. But that's for anything. That's not just for finance, accounting. That's sort of the nature of the remote office. But we've actually, you know, found with some of these tools that we're much more efficient than in office situations. And our team particularly can really juggle their work more efficiently on a remote basis and jump from client to client or project to project and fill their time efficiently. And with things like Bill.com, you can really, you know, again, keep processes moving rather than, you know, the old outsourcing days where you went to a client on Wednesdays and Wednesdays was their day and you did everything on Wednesdays. And it's not the case anymore. We're in constant contact with our clients on a day-to-day basis and at their disposal. So you know, I think we'd say that remote has helped us become more effective and more efficient.
All right, great. Does anybody else have any last questions? Keep it open for just a minute. All right, looks like we've got everybody that sent in a question so far. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here today. Thank you all for your participation. And you will receive a follow-up email in roughly a week with a copy of these slides, and it's got the contact information for both Adele and Chris if you do want to reach out to them with any follow-up questions or advice in the future.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.